A struggling single mom drowning in debt, a failed business, and zero hope. Then one day, she stumbles upon a simple idea, a tiny habit she commits to for just 1% improvement every day. 5 years later, she's on the cover of Forbes, not because of luck, but because of a transformative rule anyone can follow. This is Jessica's story, and it could be yours too. In 2015, Jessica's life was a mess. She was 32, working long hours as a waitress in a small diner in Chicago. Every penny she earned went to rent, bills, and her 6-year-old son Ethan's asthma medication. Most days felt like a never-ending cycle of exhaustion. She woke up tired, dealt with rude customers all day, and came home to unpaid bills piled on the counter. Then came the breaking point. Ethan had a severe asthma attack, and Jessica couldn't afford the medication he desperately needed. Sitting on the cold hospital floor, she felt helpless. That night, she stared at herself in the bathroom mirror, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "There has to be more than this, but how? I'm so far behind." Scrolling through her phone later that night, she stumbled upon a video. It was a former athlete talking about the 1% rule, the idea that you don't have to overhaul your life overnight. Just focus on being 1% better every day, and over time, those small improvements add up to extraordinary results. The concept hit her hard, as she'd been trying to fix everything at once: her money problems, her job, her health, and failing miserably. What if instead she focused on small, consistent progress? Just 1% better every day. The next morning, Jessica decided to try it. Day 1 was simple. She woke up 10 minutes earlier than usual and wrote down all her expenses. Day 2, she skipped her usual $3 coffee and put the money into a jar labeled Ethan's Fund. Day 10, she started walking to work instead of taking the bus, saving $15 a week. At first, the changes felt insignificant, but something started shifting inside her. Every small win gave her a sense of control she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't fixing everything, but she was moving forward. 3 months in, though, life threw her another curveball. Her manager cut her hours, and her already tight budget became impossible. Jessica sat in her tiny apartment, staring at her journal where she'd been tracking her progress. She thought about giving up. What was the point? Then she flipped through the pages. She saw how far she'd come. $200 saved in her emergency fund, 2 new meals she'd learned to cook at home, and books about personal finance she'd started reading during her breaks. Maybe she couldn't fix everything overnight, but she could still win tomorrow, just by 1%. That night, she doubled down. Jessica started waking up 30 minutes earlier to take free online courses on business. She realized she loved baking and began experimenting with cupcake recipes. Soon, she started selling them at work. The profits were small at first, barely enough to notice, but over time, word spread. Her cupcakes were so good that a local cafe offered to sell them. She kept applying the 1% rule, not just to her habits, but to her business. Each week, she tried a new recipe. Each month, she reached out to one new local business to expand her network. Every day, she spent just a few extra minutes improving her social media skills. By 2017, Jessica had saved enough to rent a small kitchen and officially launch her cupcake business. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers, and the results began to snowball. By 2019, her cupcakes were featured on a popular food blog, and orders poured in from across the city. She hired 2 employees, expanded into a bigger kitchen, and watched her dreams take shape. In 2020, Jessica made her first million. Today, Jessica's story is often called the cupcake miracle, but she insists it's not a miracle at all. It's math, she says. If you get 1% better every day, you'll improve by 37 times in a year. That's the compound effect of tiny actions. The 1% rule doesn't require you to be perfect or brilliant. It just asks you to show up and improve by the smallest margin. If Jessica could turn her life around with the 1% rule, So can you. Start today. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for progress. Whether it's saving an extra $5, learning one new word in a language, or walking an extra 5 minutes, every small step compounds into greatness. So, what's your 1% today?